What are you drinking there?
Diet Mountain Dew. Gotta wake up.
Hardcore. You gotta wake up.
Yeah, because I'm working on multiple projects at once.
Exactly. So let's jump into it. Welcome everybody to another episode of Real Agile or BS, hosted by myself, Peter Saddington at AgilePeter, and my colleague from Agile for All at AgileBob, Bob Hartman. We love answering your frequently asked questions around Agile, and we have an interesting one. It's working on multiple projects at once. Is that real Agile or is that BS? Bob, I'll let you take the first crack at it.
Wow, thanks. This one is going to be in a gray area for me. It's going to depend a little bit on context. So let's talk about Scrum. You work from a product backlog. Okay, they call it a product backlog, which seems to imply a single product, but maybe it's not. Maybe you're working on multiple projects that have all of their things feeding to you through a single product backlog. I don't like it, but theoretically you're following Scrum. On the other hand, Scrum says one of the values is focus. And how can we focus on our work if we're working on a bunch of different projects at once? What about the task switching, the multitasking overhead? So my personal choice would be to say, if you're working on multiple projects at once, let's account for the multitasking and understand we're losing a lot of context switching time, but you could do it. On the other hand, I would like to call this BS because I think companies that say it's okay are masking so many other problems. They're not going to have the ability to do real Agile anyway. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's BS and you should try to fix the problems. How about you, Peter?
I would agree. Multitasking is a nightmare. It's terrible for an entire system. And just like how you qualified in the beginning of your statement, I think it is important to qualify this. If you're working on complex systems, I mean, that requires, again, you said the values of Scrum is one of them is focus. Well, another one of the values is commitment. It is really hard to commit to doing a good job on remember the context here, guys, two complex pieces of work. Now, if you're working on a single backlog and there's multiple projects under the backlog, and one of those is complex and one of those is maybe more simple or complicated, I can see reason and rationale as to your ability out there to be able to manage to both. Be able to focus on that complex project and then be able to switch to maybe something simpler or something that is not as brain intensive. But it really depends on the person and it really depends on the context. But again, I think it's really important for everyone out there listening that if you're working on multiple projects and both of those multiple projects are highly complex, that requires focus, commitment, dedication. It requires time box of time to get into it and really understand the work so you can do your best work. I think I think we're fooling ourselves when we believe that we're greater than the realities of our biology. Our biology just doesn't allow us to multitask on multiple complex ideas. I'm often given examples when we talk about this because people always like to push back and say, well, Peter, when I'm at home, I can multitask on all sorts of stuff. It's like, I know, because they're probably not complex. They're probably more complicated or maybe simple. And I had one person in the class tell me, well, Peter, my wife traveled, I was a single dad and I was able to multitask all the time. I was able to change diapers and do the dishwasher and wash the dishes and take out the trash. And I looked at him and I said, are those complex problems or are those simple problems? And he looked at me and said, well, sometimes they get complex. and I said, well, that might be true. But yeah, within the context of that, those things are one and done. I take out the trash, I'm done. I can move on to the next thing. I do the dishes, I can move on to the next thing. I wash the dishes, I can, change the diaper. These are simple tasks. But when it comes to complex work, that requires a lot more focus to do well. And so when it comes to Agile, I think you and I both agree, if you're working on complex work, man, focus. That's what you're paid to do. And you want to do it well. Any other additions?
Yeah, I think we can make the problem even worse, Peter. We can say, okay, you're going to work on multiple projects, but we're going to do it this way. Peter, you're going to work on these 3 teams, and Bob, you're going to work on those 4 teams.
Right.
That is complete and utter BS in terms of agility. Be on one team, be able to at least focus on the work for that one team. As soon as you're on multiple teams, imagine trying to self-organize yourself across 3 or 4 teams, and those teams trying to self-organize around you. You end up with, I mean, just self-organization of the team is a complex problem, let alone solving the problem you're trying to do. So I think we have to be really careful on this one and make it clear, no multiple teams, as much as possible, allow a single team to focus on a single product or project, because it's complex work. It takes a lot of brain power to do well. I did have somebody in a class one day say, well, when I was a working mom, I would have to cook and iron at the same time, and I could do that. And I said, well, did that ever cause a problem? And she said, yeah, every once in a while she would put the iron on top of the stove. And, you know, it's possible to screw up, right? So I'd rather not have that as a possibility hanging over me. I'd rather just work and be focused on the thing. So utter BS, like you said, I think, but be really, really careful if you're going to be in an organization that's going to force you to do it. Really understand the trade-offs. Do some looking on our website about multitasking. Understand the huge penalty that you get from multitasking, because you're going to have to take that into account. If you're 50-50 between 2 projects, you're not 50-50. You're going to be more like 40-40 with 20% overhead, and people need to account for that, or you cannot possibly succeed. Even if you had a chance before, at 50-50, you got no chance.
Well, I think you're even being generous there. 50-50, you said 40-40. I think it's probably closer to 20-20, considering all the meetings that come from each of those projects in terms of focus time. So I think you're being generous. When immediately when you said it's instead of a 50-50 split between 2, it's a 40-40 with 20% overhead, my immediate thought, Bob, was that's no way. Not with all the meetings and not with all the junk that happens, all the emergent conversations, no way. 40 is generous. I think it's probably closer to 20-20. You're not going to, the whole idea is probably not going to do your best work. Is that fair?
That's very fair. I think not your best work would be a good way to say it. And the way I like to finish this by saying, what I say in class is multitasking is horrible. It's not bad. It's horrible. It screws everything up.
Fair enough. And we'll end with that. Guys, let us know your comments, your suggestions, your ideas around multitasking. Bob and I have dealt with, probably that's not the right word, but we have worked with many different organizations struggling with this tension. And so let us know if we can help. Leave a comment below or hit us up. You can find us at agileforall.com. Subscribe, smash the like button, and we'll see you guys next time.